what are those variety of things that we can contain over here? Okay, so just the basic of the tutorial that starts from here, business analytics with Excel. So now the first part is business analytics is basically what, as I told you, it's a practice of using data and statistical method to analyze the business problems and make informed decisions. Okay, now when I talk about taking an informed decision means where you know that, okay, the decision that you are taking is actually correct based on the facts and the figures. You're not taking decision abruptly because you are dealing with business that time. If one of your decision went wrong, that will not only hamper your work, but is going to hamper is also going to hamper is also going to hamper some of the issues or maybe some of the major things in your organization that is related to the problems or decisions or something of that sort. So that's why we say that you have to always take an informed decision. Now, how this informed decision comes up? Obviously, informed decision will come to you whenever you have all the facts and figures in place. So those, to read those facts and figures, to analyze those facts and figures, there are various tools that are there in the market. And Excel is one of the biggest tool, which is a bread and butter of maximum organizations, of almost 100% of the organizations. Bread and butter is Excel. Any data which you get from a client, any data which you get from an end user will always be in the form of an Excel file. Either Excel or maybe in a form of a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet would be Excel, CSV, any of the things. So any which ways, they are majorly the parts and parcel of that part. Excel or CSV, they are mostly correlated to each other. So they are spreadsheets ultimately, and you get the information on the data on a spreadsheet. And obviously, in an organization form, whenever the data is shared across, anything is shared across, it is always in the form of a spreadsheet, which is an Excel. For example, if you, let's suppose, want to create an attendance as well. So if I talk about our school times, where we have the register attendance. Okay, in the register attendance, teacher used to create like a sheet where it was rows and columns of data, and she used to write, the teacher used to write everybody's roll number, the name and each and every detail like address and phone numbers and all of that stuff, right? And then it was an attendance day by day. So that was also in a form of spreadsheet. So it is coming from a longer period of time when computer was not into a part, business analytics was not into a picture. Always, whenever there comes in a method that you want to have a look of your data, you want to study for the data, it will always be a business analytics, and it will always be a business analytics data for you, wherein you will work with the data, you will look for the data, and you will work with everything in place. Now, Microsoft Excel is one of a powerful tool for performing business analytics. As I told you, that it is a bread and butter of an organization. So obviously, it's a very powerful tool for performing any business analytics in an industry. Whenever we come into picture, whenever we talk about any of the performance, any of the business analysis, any of the thing, so the first thing that comes in our mind, okay, let's create a spreadsheet and share it across. So that spreadsheet and share it across is nothing, but it's an Excel. So there are some of the example of business analytical tasks that can be performed with Excel, including like you're analyzing the sales data to identify the trends, to forecast the future sale, to optimize the inventory levels, to identify the cost saving opportunities, and to evaluate any marketing campaigns. So all of these things, when you want to analyze it, like for example, you want to analyze the sales data of any of the organization. Okay, so in that case also, it's very much important. If you want to like use it for any of the purpose of forecasting, a future forecasting, for optimizing any inventories, anything of that sort, in that case also you can use it. Okay, so and then finally, if you want to have any inventory levels of the data or any inventories of the data, then also you can use it. So there are a lot of ways in which Excel can be used, and there is not a one single way from which you can escape that Excel. because whenever information comes in, it comes in as a way of having a rows and columns of information, and you have to bring them in the form of rows and columns as a facts and figures. And then you have to basically make that appear in the form of evaluation. So if you are doing a marketing campaign also and taking the details of some person, so obviously you are going to take it and evaluate it in the form of an Excel itself. Okay. So next thing, we move in, getting started. Basically, now as I have given you some of an overview that what is a uh, business analytics and how the business analytics perform, how this business analytics actually comes up as a way to work in the firm and use the Excel as their byproduct. So then let's start with what is an Excel. So Excel is nothing but it's a computerized sheet which is an important business tool that helps you to report and analyze information. Okay. So Excel sheet is basically, we can also say that Excel is a combination of rows and columns, okay, which is a computerized spreadsheet and is a very important tool where you can report and analyze your information. Okay. Now, Excel is a software that lets you create tables. It will first help you to create a table. It will help you to analyze your data and then probably do some analysis on that, maybe help you with some calculations, help you with some data analysis. It will help you with a lot of things in it. So Excel is in itself is a very powerful tool when it comes of the work, when it comes of showing the data, when it comes of showing any of the stuff or any of that. Okay. Now that was about Excel. What is a spreadsheet? Spreadsheets are a type of application program that manipulates numeric and string data into rows and columns of cells. So either you create an Excel, you call it a spreadsheet, so they are different names, but the performance and the work is completely same. Okay. So they both have the same capability that they will help you to enter the data and they will help you to make your data more better. Okay, better and better day by day. Now, when the value in a cell can be calculated from a formula that can evolve other cells. So you can basically have a value in a cell that can be calculated from a formula and that can evolve in other cells. A value is recalculated automatically whenever a value on which it depends changes. The value recalculate automatically. So there is one very important thing. So there is one important thing which is there, that whenever in Excel you put any formula and you want to so whenever you apply any of the formulas, okay, or whenever you do any calculations in any data set, in any data stream, what you can see is that whenever you change the formula of that data stream, basically the formula gets, like if you change any value in the column, so obviously the formula gets manipulated. Now let's see how Excel looks like. So basically, this is the system of Excel. These are called your rows. These are the rows and these are called your columns. So if I talk about rows, you have rows till you have literally like these much of rows. And if we need to have a calculation that how many rows do we have? So we have 16,384 rows that we have. And the column that we have is 10,48,576. So these are the number of columns that we have over here. The row is 16,384 and column is 10,48,576. So these are about rows and columns. And each of them over here that you see, this particular Like if you see over here, it is A1 written. So this is nothing, but it's a cell. These are called as cell. A1, B1, C1, D1, like these. These are called as your cell. They are nothing, but they are called as cell for us. Now, this is a simple Excel, simple type of an Excel sheet, which we have. Just a second. Let me just minimize it so that I can just bring them out. Yeah. So, this is simple type of Excel. Here you have ribbons. So the first is file, then home. These are called as the ribbons. Inside the ribbons, you have different options available and everything. So we are going to come back onto this on a later stage, but let's see some of the things over here. So now coming on is that what I told you, that if ever you have created any formula or you have involved any value in the cell, and ultimately based on that whatever the formula you are running, if you change the value in the cell, then it will obviously affect the formula as well. So formula is going to change as well in that case. Okay. Now, a common scenario of using an Excel includes, for example, you are doing an accounting. For example, like you have a cash flow, you have an income, you have a PL statement, you have marketing events, you have retirement, you have all these stuff. Then you have income, you have a profit and loss statement you want to run for. So for that, you can use for budgeting, like for any of the marketing things, for any events that you are running. If you are doing it for a retirement, you can do it for that. So for all of these stuffs, you can do it. Then if you want to do it for billing and sales, so you can do for that also. Therein you will have a sales invoice, you can have a purchase order and all of them. Then for the reporting purposes as well, for example, like for the project performance, if you want to do a forecasting of the data, for all of them also, we use the reporting section for that one. Then coming on to planning. Planning is basically on the weekly report, yearly report, etc. So basically for the yearly, weekly reports that we do or that we work for is your planning section that comes into picture. Now for the tracking of the data set. Tracking means if you want to have a timesheet to do all the list of sales or the list of works, all of them, then in that case also, we use basically these tracking timesheets and all of them in our case, and we work on that. Okay. So these are some of the scenarios, or these are some of the sections in which we basically work and in which we basically look forward to work for it. Okay. So now let's see for the next section. Now Excel stores a spreadsheet in a document called as a workbook. Okay, so Excel has a workbook, and inside the workbook, you have various worksheets in them. So there are workbooks, and then you have various worksheets in them. So what are the workbook worksheets in them that you will able to see? So we can see that. So just a second. Let me show you how you can see it and how we can see that as well. Yeah. So if you click on this hyperlink, sorry, that. So see, this is actually the screen where it shows you everything. Everything means whatever data you have, whatever the things you have in the data set, whatever the data sets you have, everything that is there, it will show you that all stuffs over here. Okay. So now, let's say if I see for this is my row number. This is my name of the box here where we are seeing an A1. This is the name of the box that I'm getting for. This is the file button. These are called as the quick access toolbar that we have. Okay. Then they have a quick access toolbar. Then you have over here as column letter. So these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H is a column letter that is shown over here. Then these are basically called as your quick like column letters that you have, and these like insert, page layout, formula, data, review, view, all of this is nothing but they are actually your basically a tab list. And this is your title bar which contains the information about the title, and all of them, like what is the title of the data, and what is the title, what is it's available, what is the title of the file. If let's say you save the file in a different name, like let's say I make it in form of a different name, I save it like, let's say I save it as ABCD. So here your title bar will change from book 1 to ABCD, Microsoft Excel, non-commercial use. So like that way it will be changed. So book 1 is a by default name. Okay. Then here you have an option to minimize the ribbon. Here you have an option to help, which is a question mark. Here you have an application minimizing, so you can minimize the Excel. Okay. Then here you have a window minimizing. If you want to minimize the window, you can do that. Then this one is to maximize or restore your application. Then this is to close your application. So this cancel bar. So basically this close as application, to close this application basically whenever you want to close it. Okay. So these are some of the information. Then if I talk about this is called as an active cell. These are your sheet tab scroll button where you can scroll your sheets. Then you have an insert new worksheet button. These are for your formulas. These are basically formula ribbon that we call, and these are called as the scroll bars. These are called as a vertical scroll bar. So this is a horizontal scroll bar and this is a vertical scroll bar that you have. Then here you have the application of applying like a page view button, a horizontal, and then you have a status bar over here. Then you have a zoom option. You want to zoom in, zoom out, either which ways you want to do it. So you can do that in any which way. So if I show you in the form of Excel, so this is how the look of it, and this is how it comes up. So these are your ribbons. They have this minimize option. You can minimize it. You can maximize it. You can close it. Then you can close this option. You can restore down. You can restore maximize up. Then you have an option to file, in which you have an option to save. So saving your file as in any which ways, like if you want to save your file in any which name, any which ways, then you can save it in that form. Then you have save as option. So if you have already saved your file and you want to save it in a different name, then you can use a save as option for that purpose. Then you have an option to open. So if you want to open any of the existing file or any Excel file that you have, you want to open that, so you can open it from here. Then you have an option to close. If you want to close that, you can close it. So this will close your Excel file from here as well. Then in the information, you get like what is the recent file that you have opened. So whatever the recent file you have opened recently for any of the data set or any, you will get the list of over here. And also what is the location of those files, like where it was recently placed, you will get information about that. If you want to open any new file, which can be a blank file or maybe it can be any templates that you want to click for. So if you want to have a budget creation, then you can just click this templates, which basically Excel provides. So Excel is a free software. We don't need a license. We have a free licensing software, but if there is a license, like for example, when you take an Excel in a normal way, like when you have Office 365, which is now associated with with consisting of all the package consisting of Excel, Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint presentation, and all of the other stuff. So you need to download them. So in that case, you sometimes have to buy the license. But initially, Excel is a free tool. So in Office, obviously, as our Excel are synced with our Microsoft Outlooks or Gmail Outlooks, so obviously they are a part of a package and they have a license over there. That's why you need to sign in over there and you need to work on. But in general, on the laptop, you can simply get it as a free software for yourself. So that's why you get some templates from the Excel itself. So these templates are like if you want to create some agendas. So for that, we have some Office templates available. Then if let's suppose I want to get a budget template or maybe a calendar template or expense template or for faxes, forms, inventories, invoices, if I want to have like a template, I can do that. Or maybe if I want to have some more templates, I can do that also. So for this, you need to connect to office.com. Once you connect to this office.com, it will help you to figure out the way that how you can get onto this template. So basically, you need to first have a connection to the office.com. Once you do the connection to the office.com, then it will be easy. Okay. So that's how basically it works. Now, next is of printing. Printing is where you can print. Like if you have an Excel file, you can print it. You can connect to a printer and you can basically print this. So you can print it as a form of a PDF or in the fax or any XPS document, any which ways. Or if you want to print only the active sheets, you can print that. If you want to print the entire workbook, you can print that. Or maybe if you want to print any selection that any current selections you have printed, or maybe in an Excel file you have highlighted anything, you can properly print that, and then you can provide an option that how from which page to which page you want to print it. Either you want to collate it, you want to uncollate it, you want to have a portrait orientation or landscape, letter, normal margin, no scaling. So these are all basically your options, and you have the page setups. So you can either go to this options of settings and page setups. You can set up your header, footer, sheet and everything, and accordingly you can make a print to for print and on. Now the next option that we have is save and send. Save and send is once you save it, you are directly going to send that mail out. So either you send it using a mail, you send it to a web page, you send it to a SharePoint, or you can change the file type from one to another, or you can create a PDF document from this Excel file. So many a times we create a PDF from an Excel file. So we have seen that we are converting the Excel into a PDF and all of them. So what does that mean? That means is that we are basically converting that, or we are creating that complete Excel file into a PDF form of a type so that we can easily work on that. Now in send using emails, you have option that send as an attachment. First of all, if you want to send as a link, so you need to first of all saved it in any shared location. See, send as a PDF, send as an XPS copy. XPS is a hyper extract formatting file, which consists of the images, formatting and everything. And if you want to send it in a form of a fax, you can send them in a form of a fax also. Now, if you want to save to a web, so then you have to log into that web and then you can do it. If you want to save to a SharePoint, so you should have a SharePoint location to save for. Now, if you want to change the file type, so see, these are the other file types in which you can save it, like a text, like a CSV, a formatted text tab, or an Excel 97-203 workbook, open document spreadsheet, a macro enabled work, a binary workbook, a template, anything. In whatever way you want to save it, in that way you can basically save that, okay, and do it. Then you have to, if you want to create a PDF or XPS document, So PDF document, if you want to create or you want to do it, so accordingly, you can create it from here as well. Whatever PDF document you want to create for, or the XPS document you want to create for, you can simply do it from here. Then this is an help option where you get help from Microsoft. You have some options of the tools if you want to add for. Then you can generally add like a mini toolbar on a selection. If you want to have a color schema change to maybe blue, or screen type, like any screen tips, or use the font, like whatever the body font you want to change for the size of that font, the default view of a new sheet you want to change, include this in many sheet, include this many sheets. If you want to have like one sheet only at a time, then you can use it. Then for the formulas also, you have an option to change the formulas, like it can be automatic calculation, automatic except for the data types, or it can be a manual calculations, how many number of iterations should be there, working when you're working with the formulas, what all formulas should you get, should you get a pivot table reference functions whenever you're working with pivot tables, or maybe for the error checking, whatever is indicated, what color it should be highlighted for, what colors it should be there for. Then if you have an error checking rules and everything of that sort. So basically for each of them, or for each of these things, you need to have a check on that, and you need to have those rules available so that you can work on them very easily and get it. Then next is proofing. Proofing is something when you want to change the format of the Excel, or maybe you want to autocorrect something in Excel. So let's say if there is any uppercase letters, there is any lowercase letters, and you want to ignore them, or maybe you want to have an autocorrect option enabled, like the way we have an autocorrect option in our phone, which is enabled, and it gives us an autocorrect option if we enable or disable it. Similarly, in Excel also, we can have that autocorrect option that can help you to autocorrect your data accordingly and as per your requirements. Then whenever you want to correct a spelling, you want to ignore like the uppercase, you want to ignore the words that contain numbers, you want to ignore the internet and file address, you want to have a flag repeated words, you want to enforce any extended uppercase in French, you want to suggest from any main dictionary only. So all of these you can basically have a point for, and you can look for them as well. You can have a change for them, you can have a look for them, you can do as per your choice. Then if you want to have a French modes, like traditional and new spellings, if you want to check for, or maybe any Spanish mode. So whenever you want to work with a different language, or it's not only us that who are working on these, but there are many people around who work with the different languages as well. So for them, there is a customer dictionary, which is an inbuilt dictionary inside the Excel itself, which helps you to actually see and attain a dictionary at that level, and will help them in the basically in the proofing of the data. So proofing is basically section for the data proofing. Basically, it helps you with the data correction, data proofing, for all these stuffs. Basically, that proofing helps. So whenever you enter a data or anything, and then whenever there is an error that comes in, so that error is actually shown to you by Alteryx. Okay. Then if let's say you want to save anything, so in save also you have a lot of options where you want to save. If let's say you have an auto recovered files, then where it would be saved. Now what are auto recovered files? So auto recovered files are basically those files which get saved whenever you forgot to save the Excel file, or maybe your Excel crashes and you are unable to save the workflow on which you're currently working. So you forgot you are currently working on some files, and then you were unable to save that due to some issue. Like basically the issue might be that your Excel crashed, or maybe your Excel hang up, or something of that sort. Due to that reason, you were not able to save that file. So as you were unable to save that file, so for that reason, you can save it like this way, that you can have an auto recovered file from where you can auto recover your file at whatever point you want. Okay, so that is called as a auto recovered section for us, where we can auto recover our file. So here in by default, it gets auto recovered mainly in your admin app data support. So for me, it auto recovered over here, and it will be auto recovered for everyone by this only, because that's a by default place. But if you want that it should get auto recovered to some different locations, then obviously you can provide that location. You can just provide the path of that location and it will get saved in that path of location only. Then if you want to disable the auto recovered workbook, or you want to check for the office document, where are the caches being saved, you want to choose a color of the version or anything of that sort, you can do all of them. Then the next we come up is a language. So basically by default, whenever you set up your Excel, then in that case, there are different languages that are set up over here or which are enabled. For me, it is English US by default and English India that are being installed. Now, if you want to set anything or you add any additional languages, you can select it from here and you can add them up. Once you click, you can add them, they will get installed. Okay. Then there are some advanced options, like after pressing enter, move the selection, down arrow key. So what are the different shortcut keys that you can use whenever you want to have some exceptions or whenever you select or whenever everything is there? So you can have a enable, fill, handle, and cell drag and drop, allow editing direct in cells, extend data range formats and formulas that can be extended. So these are basically the by default settings that have been already done in an Excel. When you get the Excel in your system, these are the by default settings that are being done. Now, in any which case, if you want to change them, if you want to modify them, then you can just go ahead in the section of Excel options and you can modify them as per your choices. Okay. For the image, for cut, copy, paste, for printing, for creating charts, for displaying anything, for displaying options, for any of that stuff, you can do any of them. Then if you want to have customized ribbons, so you see there are ribbons, there are lots of things. And if you want to have some customized ribbons from here that you want to show in the chart, for example, from here, if I want a developer, if I want some, I have all of them. Let's say I want a developer in this. So I just check it and I move it over here. So basically once I check and I just maybe rename, or I can say import export, and I can just move it up and down. So whatever ways I want to just do it, I can do that. In fact, there are some popular commands that can be there, like all charts. I want to add them. So I can do that from here. Now from here, if I want to remove anything, I can remove that. So that is also an option. Either you can add it, you can remove it, or you can create a new tab. In fact, you can reset that, you can delete that tab. So you have all these options available if you want to do that. So if I right click on that particular tab and I want to not show that tab or not want to click that tab, so I can do that also. So this is something which is there as a customized way. Now there's a quick access toolbar. Quick access toolbar, you generally have like a quick access toolbar you see over here that I have save, undo, and redo. Apart from that, if you want to have anything like, for example, I want to add the freeze pane, like freeze panes option also, insert cell option also, then this is something which I done. Now, the most important and the very interesting part of Excel which comes up is an add-in. Add-in is something which is like any type of an application that you want to install as an add-in option in Excel. Add-in means, like for example, any sort of an application that you want to connect with Excel to work for is termed as an add-in. Okay, so what type of add-in you see for that fact? So add-ins are basically those data sets wherein you can add your data and you can work accordingly with the data files and each of them stuff. So that's why it is called as an add-in for us. Now, how these add-ins basically work. So these add-ins are nothing. If you click on the add-ins, then it will allow a small add-in inside the data and it will help your data to connect with any of the applications that you have. There is comms add-in, there is Excel add-ins. You can go and you can see like analysis tool, VBA, Euro currency tool, solver add-in. You can click on this, you can add that add-in. So this add-in will be added to your data set. So this is how basically Excel performs. And this is how basically your Excel works. So these comes as an option to us as an add-in option. Then we have Trust Center. Trust Center is basically your security center where you can provide the securities. You can create your own securities. If you want to show a message bar, if you want to show any options, if you want to have an external context, any privacy options about the document, any translation options, any password protection you want to apply for. So all these stuffs basically falls under the options. Now, after option, you have exit. If you want to exit, then you can simply exit. Apart from that, here in info, I have some permissions, like I can protect my workflow, encrypt it with a password, or maybe I can encrypt a current sheet with a password, or I can restrict the permissions for the people that who can restrict it, who can see that Excel or who can't see that Excel, or I can have a digital signature. So whenever you see that we create some Excel files where you need to add your digital signature, like in a form, like in a Google form or something of that sort. So that therein we create this digital signatures by this section, and then it helps us to work with them. Okay. So that helps in a way that will help you to look for and will help you to work for in a way. And this is how these add-ins at each of the work is created. Okay. So basically what we were discussing over here is about all these options and all these terms that we talk about it. Now let's talk about our first ribbon tool, which is a home. So in home, we get an option to paste. Now, right now the paste option is gray out because if I would copy something and I would paste, then only the paste option will be shown over here. It will be blackened for us. Now here you have cut, you want to cut something, you want to copy something, copy as a picture or copy as a text, anything of that sort you can copy. There's an option of format painter. Now what is a format painter? Let's say if I have something written and it has been in a particular format like center line, bold, and all of them. So like that way if it is written, then in that case, it is always that you want to set up that format for a complete template, or maybe if you are entering a new detail, the format of that might be different. So to enter that format again, you need a format painter for that. For example, let's say I'll enter some entry. Let's say I have name. Now, let's suppose I make this as center. Okay. And probably I change that to italic. Now, if let's suppose I want to paste the same format over here for this name, what I can do is that I can just click on this and I can click on this. So it will help you with the formatting of that particular column with whatever format you have assigned for a particular data, or maybe there is an existing format that is available so that you can make the data look in a consistency. Now here you have some different fonts that are available. For whatever font you want to change your data type, you can change it. Like you want to have Arial black or anything of that sort, you can change it. In fact, you can change the size. If you want, you can change that accordingly. Then you have bold. You want to make it bold, you want to make it italic, you want to make it underlined. So as per your requirement, you can do it. In fact, in underlined also, you can have a double underline, you can have a single underline. So that's up to you what you want to do for. Okay. Then these are called as borders. If you want to add some borders, like if you want to have a bottom border, if you want to have a top border, you want to have a left border, if you want to have a right border. So this will help you to create a borders along. Then if you have, if you want to have no borders, then it will have no borders. All borders, then it will have all borders. Then it says outside borders, so it will have only outside borders, no inside borders. If you want to have like thick borders, you can have them a thick border. So these are different types of borders that you have over there. You can draw your borders as well if you want accordingly. If you want, you can draw your borders also as per your choice. If you want, you can draw your borders. Okay. Then you have these options. These are basically to increase the font and decrease the font size as per your choice. Then if you want to fill anything with a color, you can fill it like this way. And if you don't want to go to no colors, you have more options when you go to more colors. Now, if you want to highlight your text, or if you want to text the color of the, if you want to color your text basically, so then you use this like this way. Then these are for your alignments, basically a top align, center align, left align, right align, middle align, left align, like this way. So these are basically the alignments that we have. And this is for your orientation. So if you want to have the align counterclockwise like this way, clockwise like this, anti-clockwise, clockwise, vertical text. If you want to rotate the text, if you want to rotate text down, if you want to format cell alignments, so you can do all of them. So you can format it over here with the alignment and everything. Okay. Then these are the options wherein you can decrease the indent or increase the indentation. This is the indentation, like how much it will be aligned to the left, how much it will be aligned to the right. That is the indentation that we talk about. So that's how it works. Okay. Then herein, these are the option to wrap a text. Wrap a text means it will be wrapped in the center and it will be shown to you. That is called as wrap text. Then you have merge in center. Merge in center is if you want to merge anything to the center, you can merge this. Or maybe you want to merge a column like this way. So it will be merged in center. Or maybe you want to merge across. You want to merge cells. You want to have unmerged cells, then it will unmerge. Then these are basically for the like whatever the format you have entered, accordingly you can change your formatting of that data set and you can get more formats according to that. If you click on general and then you want to get some more formatting sets in general section, you can have that. Or maybe if you want to customize your formats accordingly, then you can customize it as well on your choice. Now here, this is for accounting formats. Like if you want to have an accounting number, you want to have a dollar, US, all of these. So you can have that. Then if you want to add a percentage sign, comma, you want to increase decimal, and if you want to decrease decimal, for all of these stuff, we use this. This is for your conditional formatting. Now, conditional formatting is something which is a formatting that we do based on any conditions. Like there can be cells which are highlighted based on a rule wherein for a particular cell, I have an highlighted rule that, okay, if my value is greater than equal to 100, then those cells should be highlighted. So that's a rule which I have created wherein I'm highlighting the table based on any of the highlighted cell or anything. So that is called as a conditional formatting. Then if you have a top bottom rules or rulers that can be applied, or maybe on the data bars, like for the complete data set you want to apply for, or you should have a color scale wherein for each of the rule you will have a different color to show for. Icon set, if you have some icons to show for, like here we have an options of icons, arrows, like directions, shapes, indicators, like that way. And if you want to have more rules, so you can have the icons available, like whatever the styles you want to show for, you can have your icons available according to that. Okay. Then format as a table. So you can format over here. There are like lot of options of formatting, so you can do that. Then there are cell types of formatting, the way you want to format a cell. You want to insert any cell, insert a sheet row, insert a sheet column, insert a sheet, delete. You want to format anything, like you want to want to format the height of the row, you want to auto fit the height of the row, column width, everything that you want to format for organize the sheets and everything. So all of them you can do it over here. Okay. In fact, if you want to protect your sheet, so you can do that. If you want to lock a cell, you can do that. Then there is an auto sum. Auto sum is you can do sum, average, count, minimum, maximum, whatever you want to do. Then fill, if you want to fill up left, right, series, justify, whatever. Want to clear something, you can clear all the formats. Then you have sort and filter over here to sort. If you want to find and select something, then you have find, replace. If you want to go to a sheet, if you want to go to any formulas, any comments, anything you need, sheet you have created, any objects you have created for any of the stuffs, you can go to any of these according to your requirement. Okay. So that was for the home section. Okay. So that is basically for your home section. Now let's talk about some of the other stuffs. Yes. So like the way we were doing in there, wherein we have seen all the options of home. Now let's see the next option where we have insert. Okay. So let's go to that. Now insert section is basically where you want to insert some of the things, like you want to insert table, you want to insert pictures, you want to insert some shapes on the data set, you want to have something as a smart art, you want to have some screenshots. All of these comes under the section of the insert. So in the insert section, you have all of them as available. Next, wherein you can insert like a pivot table. So this pivot table, we are going to catch up in detail what is a pivot table and how we actually accomplish the pivot table. So that we are going to surely do it. Then next we have over here is the tables. If you want to enter any table, or if you want to create a table of your own, you want to enter a picture over here, maybe of your choice, or you have saved it across, you want to enter any like a sort of any shapes over here, if you want to have any smart arts entering over here, so you can do that. If you want to have some screenshots that is available, you want to, so if you have a screenshot available, you can take that and you can enter it. Otherwise, you can have a screen clipping wherein you can take a screenshot of it and you can enter that. Like this way, I can enter a screenshot also. Then I have columns that I can enter. I have lines that I can enter. I have a pie, I have bar, I have area. So like this way, I can enter all of them. So these are different types of chart section that you can enter. Then there are sparklines. Sparklines is nothing but one of a chart which has lines in them, like line, column, win loss. So these are all the sparklines that we say. Then we can add some slicers. Like if you have any connection with any workbook or anything, we can have some slicers. We can insert a hyperlink. We can have a text box. We can add headers and footers into our data set. Like this way. Or we can have any word art or any signature line. You can add your signatures. You can add any objects over here. Now, object is something which is like an bitmap image, or a Microsoft graph chart or PowerPoint presentation. Something of that is called as an object. Or you can insert your own file as well as an hyperlink. Then you can have equations. You can write them as well. And you can insert some symbols if you want to. So these are some various types of insertion that is there in picture that you can enter, that you can design, that you can have in them. So these are basically called as your directions, data, or something of that sort that we generally enter. Okay. Now, the next thing that we have is a page layout. Page layout basically comes as a part wherein you decide how you're going to inform with a page, or how you're going to work with a page. So basically how the page should look, what should be the page orientation, what should be the size of the page, what should be the margins on the page, what should be the print area on the page, any background if you want to add for any of these stuffs, then you can go ahead with the page layout. In fact, for a purpose wherein you want to add something of a sort of margins, you want to adjust your width, you want to adjust your height, you want to scale up your data, you want to have a grid lines, like for this, these are called as grid lines. If you want to remove them, if you want to add them, if you want to have it in a print format, if you don't want to have it in a print format, if you want the views to be there of the headings, if you don't want it, bring forward, send backward, any of these tasks you want to do for, obviously you can do it in any which ways and in any which form as well. So that's what is called as your basic page layout and the page sections that we all have. Okay, now these were some of there that we have as an overview. Now coming on to our PPT, we have some shortcut keys for navigation through a worksheet. So whenever we come through a work or whenever we come through a space wherein we want to have a shortcut navigation through a worksheet, so that can easily be done. So there are some shortcuts. Obviously, when we work with Excel, we used to have a shortcut in place, and we should have the shortcuts in place as well. The reason behind it, shortcuts help you to reach your goal very easily and in a very easy manner. So that's why shortcuts are very much important in any which form. So how can you provide a shortcut? So there are a lot of shortcuts that are available in your data set, and you can have them all available in the data set in many forms as well. So what are these shortcuts? Let's look for it. Some shortcuts are like these. For example, the up, down arrow, if you see over here, up arrow, down arrow, right arrow, left arrow. So they basically helps you to move your active cell up and down, left and right, and all of these stuff. So for all of these purpose, we use this left, down, up and right arrow key for that purpose only. Okay. Now next we have is your nothing but right one, left one, or control home. So if you press on control home, so control home is nothing, but it will help you to control your screens, or it will move your active cell to A1. So for example, let's say I'm right now here, and if I press control home, I'll be assigned to cell A1 as soon as I press control home. Control end, I'll move to the end of that sheet, like this way. Enter, I'll move to the active cell. If I enter, I'll move to the next cell. F5. If I press F5, it opens a dialog box for me, which is I can go to some sheets or something of that sort. Now, if I press home, so I move to the home. So if I press home also, it moves to like home, it moves to a current cell of that row. If I press page up or page down, there is page up, home like this. You have page up, page down. So page down moves to the next sheet, page up moves to the previous sheet. Like this way, we actually move. Tab, shift plus tab. So there is tab, sorry. There is tab to move this, and if you press tab shift, it will stay as this. So tab shift plus tab moves to active cell to the right or left one. So tab is like this and tab shift is like this. So the active cell. So that's how it basically works. Okay. So these are the shortcut keys that are there in the Excel, and for that you work along also. So these are the different type of shortcut keys that are available, and for that we work. And these shortcut keys are pretty important because you should know them. Now, why you should know them? The reason behind of you knowing these shortcuts is because these shortcuts will help you to reach to your specific goals or the specific strings or any of them. That's why. So basically, for that reason, you should always know them and you should always work with them in a specific way so that you can easily achieve your goals. Like these shortcuts will probably help you with whatever you want to. For example, if you Alt plus Enter key is a combination to enter a text on multiple lines within a same cell. For example, let's say if I want to enter a text over here, I'll just click on the cell, and if I press Alt Enter, I'll get to enter some other details in the cell itself. So that is a combination to enter text on multiple lines within the same cell. Okay. So that was about the session for today. I hope you liked the session. Okay. So hi everyone. Let's start with the next thing, that is getting started with Excel. So basically, if I talk about Excel, I told you some of the glimpse about Excel, that how Excel looks, what are its ribbons, how it can be helpful, how it can provide you with the different helps, different stages, different data sets, everything. Then how can you get help in the Excel? So basically, in this, if you click on this cross, then it will help you to stop this. Now, I told you about the quick access toolbars that we have. So basically, you can just customize those quick access toolbars. They are basically the customized toolbar that contains a set of commands that are very much independent and are onto the ribbon, or are currently with the data sets, with the data segments, with everything of that sort, wherein you can add a button, you can represent the command, you can have a quick access toolbar, you can quickly access the data set, you can work on that in a way, whatever you want. So that's how we work with these quick access toolbar, as we heard about it in our last session, where we got to know about this quick access toolbar and how can we access them in a better way or in a better sense. So these were your quick access toolbars, for which we got some information and got some idea on that, wherein we can customize the ribbon window, we can work on the data sets, we can work on some data, we can look for the data, we can see if the data is working fine, if the data is looking fine, if everything sets apart, if everything looks good. So all of these things, what we do is basically on these terms and technologies that we work on. Okay. So these are some of the stuffs, and these are some of the things that we look forward for and that we work forward for on these criteria and these technologies that basically works on, that are basically customizable and quickly to access. That's why we say it as a quick access toolbar. Now your home tab. If you remember, we did that there is a home tab that is there in Microsoft Excel, which has a lot of functionality. For example, crunching, building your data into a right input, or building your data correctly into a proper input file, building your data in a way that you can easily see, you can easily access, you can have a data formation, you can have it for sorting, for filtering numbers, applying styles, for formatting, for finding and replacing, all of that. So for all these purposes, we basically use our home tabs, and we basically use these data to filter for or to work with this. So these are for the home tabs, and these are for the effects and formattings of the data set that we all have for our work purposes. Then the next thing that comes up is an insert tab. So insert tab is basically for inserting of the stuff and inserting of the data. So that's where we get the insert tab for, and we look for the insertions of the data and insertions of the files, that whatever we want to insert, whatever we want to look for, we can insert that, we can have a look on it, and we can work accordingly with the data set. So all of these are some of the stuffs or some of the things that we figured out or that we see in the last session when we read about it and we got a knowledge of it. Then we also read about page layouts, wherein we can have a layout of our page. We can have a page where we can get the layouts. In that layout, we can see for what pages or what data it can work better, or for what functionalities, for what printing stuff. You can do things like you can have a page setup, you can do a scaling on the data set, you can do all of these things together. So that is also there. Then comes the most important part, which is formulas. So the formulas are basically a tab in Excel which greatly simplifies the task for the number of crunching. Crunching in the sense, whatever attributes, like the auto sum you are doing, or maybe any of the features you are applying for, wherein you have some functional libraries assigned to, wherein you have some defined names, wherein you have some formula additioning, wherein you have some calculation. So for all these parts, we go to the formula tab. So let's see what all it offers to us. So this is my Excel file. Let me just reclose this one. Okay, now coming back to my Excel file. So this is the section of formula that we have. Now in formulas, the first thing that comes up in our mind is to insert a function. Insert functions basically have like whatever functions you want to insert for. If you want to automatically insert a function in any which ways, like sum, average, if, hyperlink, count, max or minimum, anything of that sort, you can insert it from here. Basically, if you want to enter the sum, you can click on OK, insert, and you can have the numbers and you can sum them up. So how that is doable? Let's see. I want to sum. Let's say my first number is 10 and my second number is 20. And I click OK to see. I get a sum of 10, 20, that is 30. So this is how my insertion works. Okay. Then we have auto sum. Auto sum is basically a feature wherein we do the sum automatically, like wherein we have the summation of the data set, or we can have the average of a data set. Basically for the formulas and all the recently used formulas, we can have an average of a data set, we can have a summation of a data set, we can have all these terms. Then recently used will have all the functions that you have recently used or maybe you are going to use. So whatever the data or whatever the functions you are going to use most of the times, those are the functions that comes under the section of recently used. Okay. Any of the sum, pivot methods, any of the other functions that you work for comes under the sections of recently used. So these are the basic sections that we work for. And these are the sections which are highly recommended also. Then if I talk about financials, so in the financials, we have different parts that cover it all. Like for example, if you want to trim a data set, if you don't want to trim a data set, if you want to have a confluence, if you want to find the duration of any of the data, if you want to see what's the duration of a particular data that we have in place, all these terms or the terminologies can be given as a significant of your having into a functionality. Now, if the next part that we have is a logical. So logical statements simplify as a logical statement that you are providing. For example, if you want to apply any logic to your data set, for example, if you want to have some multiple conditions that should be applied, if you want to have some multiple data sets, if you want to apply, or if you want to have a condition of if and else that you want to signify. So for all of these, we have the condition of logical. Then the next part that we have is that any condition that is satisfied. So that's what we call as a logical in that. Okay. Now the next part that we have is a text. So text is basically whenever you want to change something from a character from any of the different data type to any of the other data type. For example, in this case, I want to change into character. I want to concatenate any of the two things together. I want to basically find the length. I want to basically find the find what is there in the left side, what is there on the right side. I want to specify these things. So then in that case, I'm going to go ahead with these options, wherein I will have the length of the stuffs available. I will have the length of all the things available. For all of these sections, I'll basically go ahead with the length and all. Okay. So that's how I work with my data sets and how I find those length and everything in my data set. So this is what we called as for the text. Like if you are looking for a character length, if you want to find out what is on the left side, if you want to find out what is on the right side, then in that case, you will see all these texts coming up and see all these things coming up as well as a data set and as a type of text. Then the next thing that we have is a date time. If you want to enter anything, let's say from a date, you want to find out a month, you want to find out a year, you want to find out net work days, any of these things, then in that scenario, we basically go ahead and use for the date function. We always go ahead and use for the date function in that way. Each and every time. Okay. That is called as your date function. So that is called as your date function. So basically, these are the stuffs that we get in the functionalities and in get the formulas for here. Okay. Now, next step that we have is a lookup references. Lookups and references are something which is basically used for looking up the data or for the data sets or something of that sort. Then we use the lookup references and the lookup data set for that purpose. So that is called as a lookup and referencing of the data in or anywhere in the part. Okay. So that is called as a lookup references. Then we have math or triggers. So math or triggers is something wherein you want to put the functionality of math, you want to put the functionality of triggers. And all of them stuff, wherein you look for the math trigger functionalities, you get all the averages, you get all the ceilings and all of these. So these are type of more functions that we have in picture. Okay, so let's look up for some formulas that we can use over here. Let's read through some formulas that we can use. Okay, that we can basically create or we can recreate in that sense. So the first formula that we have is a sum. For example, I want to find the sum of anything. Let's say I have quantity over here and I have price and I have total sales. So for the total sales, I want to find the sum of this. So how I can get the sum? I can just simply write sum and I can just give the total of this column. And I have my sum available. Similarly, for an average, if I want to get the average of anything, then in that case, I can get the average by using this section. Similarly, like you do for the sum, we'll get the average. And here, we'll just select for this and we'll get our average like this way. For total sales, or if you don't want to do for the total sales, let's try it for something else. Let's try the average for a quantity. Then that will be at 11. Or maybe you want to try it for price per unit. Then let's take it for price per unit. And you will get the average. So like this way, it works. Basically, your average, count, formula, everything of that sort works in this way. Okay. And in this way only, it will get handled and your work will be done in this single way itself. So this is the only way where you can handle and you can do your jobs at that point of time. Okay. So these are some of the functionalities of average and functionalities that you use for an average whenever you want to do for an average, whenever you want to go ahead with the average stuff, whenever we want to see that, okay, what's the average that for a column is coming up and all of these stuff. Then the next thing that we come is for the count, wherein we want to count the formulas, like what is the count of any of the columns. So in that case, whenever you want to see for the count of any column or anything of that sort in a purpose, so how we can do that? We can basically do that in a sense of like quantity over here we have, and I want to find the count of it. So in that case, the count will be like I can do a count, and here I can say a count, and from here I can just get my counts over here like this, like a 3 of it, and we can do a count for that purpose. So that's actually for the counting of the formula, where you want to count how many number of records you have in that complete data set. So in that case, you can use a count for that purpose, and it's pretty useful also. Okay. Okay, so let's now get on with the count formula. So as I saw, for the count formula is to count the number of records. Then we have subtotal. So subtotal basically helps you to find the total of any of the set or anything. For example, subtotal is basically providing you the total of anyone. So basically, a sum of anything has got a subtotal. Let's say I say subtotal, then you have different sections. Either you want to go for an average, for a count, for count, for max, min, whatever it is. So let's say I want to take for the average, and herein I want to take the average of this column. So we'll see this average. Now the question comes in, will the average for this column, whenever we are finding it from a normal average formula, will this and this be same? Yes, this and this will be probably same. We can check it also. Let's say if I take the average for this sales, it's 58.55, this and this average, and whereas for this is the different one. Why? Because herein we are subtotaling that average. So whatever the average we are getting from each of them, based on that we are subtotaling it, and based on that section it is becoming that total of the data set. Okay. So these are called as your subtotal. Now then we have modulus. Modulus is pretty easy. Modulus is nothing but modulus is, let's say you want to find a mod of something. For example, what will be the modulus of this one? Like this, your 10. If you want to find the mod of this thing, mod is basically a dividend wherein you want to find what is the modulus of this number, if that is divisible by like completely divisible by 2, or if it is not divisible by 2, then in that case you can find the modulus of it. So how we write the mod? I say the mod and whatever the divisor you want to say for. Let's say if I give it 2, then it will be 0. Why? Because it is completely divisible by 2. But if I give it as 3 or maybe 4, then it will come as 2. Why? Because it is not divisible completely by 4 or something of that sort. That's why it is being given as a modulus. So modulus is basically whenever you are dividing something. So in your Excel, your modulus is a division, basically. Then we have power formulas. So power formulas are basically whenever you want to have a set of powers that you want to set for. For example, let's say for this one, I want to set a power to 3. So 10 to the power of 3 will be 1000. Similarly, 4 to the power of 3 will be 64. 4 into 4 into 4. Right? So it's like a multiple, that how many times you want to multiply something and how many times you want to show for something. For example, if right now I would say power of this to 5, then it will be 1024. So that's how it happens. Now ceiling. Now ceiling is a formula which is interesting and also quite helpful. So basically what ceiling is all about. Ceiling is basically helps you to find out that whatever whatever data sets you have, whatever the data frequencies you have, whatever the data you have, for that that you can divide your data sets and you can work accordingly. Okay. So basically, whatever data sets you have, whatever data in that case, we basically use that data. Now, how? So let's say we are using the ceiling formula. So ceiling formula is something wherein we actually, the ceiling function is Excel, basically helps you to round about to the nearest possible set to have. So possible use the ceiling function for that. Okay, where we basically use ceiling for that reason, where we round the data set. In this section, we are doing a ceiling. So we are Let's start with the ceiling one. So ceiling is basically whenever you want to get the nearest formula or want to be a part of the nearest formula, then we go ahead with the ceiling function. So ceiling function basically helps you with having a nearest type of a formula that you want for. For example, let's say if I want to have it for a ceiling function wherein I just want to find the nearest of this number, then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to like add on with a ceiling formula there, wherein I can say that, okay, ceiling and the number should be this at, let's say, nearest to maybe 2 places, I'll get around 36. Similarly, similar to nearest to 3 places or 4 places or something of that sort, then accordingly, I'll get that. I'll get that thing. Okay. Now, similarly, when we have a floor expression or when we have the formula of floor. So how can we do that with the floor? So floor is basically when you have a when you basically have an option in place where it is like floor is basically rounding off it, just simply rounding off. So ceiling was a nearest round off number, whereas floor will be just a simple round off to get the whole number. For example, like in this case, when I said that, okay, floor. So floor basically rounds it down. It will never round it up. Ceiling basically rounds it to up, whereas floor rounds it to down. That's what the formula works for. So if I say round it to 2, it will show you 34. So that means it has round up to 2 places, like that way it works. So basically that is what is your floor formula over here. Then next formula that we have over here is a concatenator. So concatenate is basically concatenating the two words. Let's say I want to combine these two words, hello world and concatenate to form a combination of a complete word. So how can I do that? I can say concatenate and I can take this as first text. Then if I want to add a space between them, so I can just in the double quotes give the space, then I can go here and from here I can take this and I can combine this. So this is something which is called as concatenation. When you want to concatenate 2-3 words together to form a sentence or a complete string of a word, then we basically go ahead with the concatenate formula. Now let's suppose in any which cases I want to find a length of any word. Okay, for example, in this case, I want to find the length. That what is the length of this word? Then I'll get it 5. So basically length is like you just type the length and you get the formula across. Now, the next formula that we have is replace. For example, I want to replace this A110 to B. So how can I do that? I can write replace. I can select my text, which is my old text this. My start number is 1. Number of characters is also 1. And my new text would be, let's say this time it should be C. Okay, so C, this has been changed. Like this way, we can have some changes over here. Now, replace is when I'm replacing something. Basically, from a word, I am replacing to another word. Okay, I'm not replacing the complete sentence. But in case of substitution, I can substitute means I can basically like substitute a word, completely change or substitute a basic word. That is called as a substitution. Okay. So for example, in this case, like I have done that instead of I like, I have given it as like I have given it as instead of I like Excel, I have given it as he like Excel. So therein I am substituting the complete sentence or the complete word in that case. Okay, that is called as a substitution. Okay, so substitution and replace are kind of different with each other. In replace, in replace, basically you are replacing a single word and all that. And in your substitution, you substitute some words. So that can lead to sentence and all of that. Okay. So that's how it works with substitution. Now, there is one more formula in Excel, which is where you want to find the words from the left, middle, or from the right. So that's a very important, like a formula in it itself. So how we can do that? Let's say left, the text, and you have to give the number of characters. So in this case, this is 5, and you get that. So this is how we work. Now, there is something which is upper, lower, and proper. Upper means when you want to have a word in an uppercase, that means in a capital letter. And lower means when you have to show everything in a lower. And proper means when the first letter will be capital and the next letters will be in the lower letters. So that is called as the formulas for that. Then we have the today function. So in the today function, we need to have a date. Today means the current date, which is today's date I'm going to see. So you just need to add today and it will return you current date, which is today's date. Now from this date, you need to find the day, you need to find the month, you need to find the year, you'll able to get it. Okay. Similarly, for the time that you want to see for, so you can just mention the time and whatever the time you want to see for. Let's say in this case, I would say time, hours is, let's suppose 5, minutes is 20, and seconds is 90. So it's 5:20 a.m. that it will show. Similarly, for hours, it is going to show me the hours, current hours now. What is the hours now? That it's going to show me. Then for the minutes also, it is going to show me like that way. And for the for this now for your seconds also, it is going to show me like that way. Okay. So these are some of the formulas. These are very basic formulas that we have covered, which we cover in that formula section. Okay. Now let's move to the next thing in our Excel sheet, which is a data tab. Now data tab is basically where you can import the data from any external sources, but not limited to a text file. So basically there is no limitations of providing you with a text only with a text file that you can only access with a text file, but it is limited that you can not only access a text file, you can also use a Microsoft Access database, you can use a web pages, you can use an XML document, you can use any Microsoft query, you can use any SQL Server database, whatever you require, you can download it or move it that way. Now, if I see on Excel, the data tab, if you go to this, see, you can access it from an Access, you can access it from a web page, you can access it from a text, you can access it from any other sources. So from all of that pages, you can do it. So in any which way, this is very much helpful and this is very much needed also. So from wherever you want to access your data or you want to see your data or something of that sort, so you can basically do that. Okay. Any which ways you want to fill for the data set, fill for access from Access, maybe any web page location, maybe you want to access a text file in it, you want to access from any other data sources. In any other data sources means like from any different data sources, like from your SQL server or any of the connections or anything. Then in that case, we use this for the any other data sources option. Then if you have any existing connection, so you can see for any existing connection, accordingly you can do that. Now refresh all is basically whenever you want to refresh your connections and you want to work accordingly. So that is called as refresh all. Okay. So wherein we can refresh the connection. So if you have any which ways made a connection through your any of the Access database or any of the thing or any of the other services or any of the databases or anything, then in that case it is pretty simple that you can just refresh that data set and you can easily work with it. So that is called as a refreshing of those connections. Just click on refresh and you have an option to refresh all or maybe just simple refreshing the data. Okay. Now the next is our review tab. So let's see that. Let me move this down. A review tab basically is a tab that will let you proofread your Excel workbook. So whatever the proofing, for example, if you want to have any Excel spelling check in the data, if you want to add anything, if you want to delete any comments, if you want to protect your data, if you want to unprotect your Excel sheets or any workbooks, and finally allow the user to track the changes in multi-user Excel workbook. So in that case, you can use a review tab for that purpose. Okay, so that's the review tab. Basically, this review tab comes on over here, wherein you have all these options and you can check for all these options as well, wherein you can review whatever you want and you can review the data in whatever way, whatever spell check, any comments, anything you want to mention for, you can simply mention that and it will show you up in that data set or it will work for you in that data set along. Okay, so that is called as the review section, where you can have autocorrects, protecting of the sheet, protecting of the workbook, share your workbook. So whatever ways you want to have it, you can simply have that way. Now, there are some shortcut keys that are there. So there's a full list of Excel shortcut keys that are there, which you can use, which comes as a basic of an Excel. Okay, a full list of the shortcut keys that comes as a part of Excel and is pretty important as well to use for. So these basic shortcut keys have a full list. Have a full list that we have. So some of the favorites are there and some of the lists are there. For example, if you want to insert a new line within a cell, so you can use Alt Enter. If you want to enable editing, anything of that sort, you can click on F2. If you want to add a comment to a cell, you can click on Shift plus F2. If you want to open a print preview, then it will be Control plus F2. If you want to fill the data down, okay, so then it will be Control R. If you want to create a name, so let's try them up, how they work. Let's see them up in Excel. Okay, let me open a new sheet for you guys. And let me take probably this much data as a sort of for analysis or for a reference purpose, basically. Now, I said the first thing is insert a new line within a cell. Let's say here, when I'm entering something, I want to enter a new line within a cell. So how can I do that? Alt plus enter. And I can enter a new value as B2 like this. So you will have dual values. Then we have enable editing with a cell, which is if you want to enable editing, I can click on F2 and it will help me to enable, click it and make it as this. Then add a comment to a cell. If you want to add a comment to any cell, so it is Shift and F2. So see, you can add a comment. So if you now have, you can add a comment from here. Open print preview, that will be Control plus F2. So see, the print preview has opened. Now you can print your data. Fill data down or to the right through selected cells. So if I want to print this data down, let's say, let's say I want to print this data down. So I can just say Shift and Control D and it will paste it like this. And if I want to move it to the right side, I say Shift and Control R, paste it to the right. You want to create a name. So then in that case, you will use Control F like this way. So that's a name manager. So now name manager is a very good concept. One thing of that sort. Name manager is something which helps you to create a name for a particular table. Let's suppose I want to create a name for this table, this pivot table. I want to create a name for this pivot table. So I can create a name. How? I can press either Control plus F3 or I can go to the data also, to the formulas also. Here also I'll find the name manager. Now in the section of new, I'll give it a name, the pivot data table. And I will select the sheet, select this, and I'm going to select the range of the data for which I'm going to create it. And I'll click on OK. Okay, there is space, that's why it gave me an error. It's my bad. Okay. Let's say data table. So there's a name manager created. Now, how this name manager can be helpful? That's also a very good question, that how this name manager can be helpful. So let's suppose with this name manager, I want to, let's say, get some data or anything. Let's say for this manager, like I have this data set, I want to get this values basically. So here, what I want to do is that I want to get these values. Okay. Let me just delete this comment and make it to normal. Now, for let's say example, for this Mickey, I want to bring its area, okay, by using a VLOOKUP. So, this area numbers, how I can do that? Generally, if you are doing a VLOOKUP, you will have the lookup value, you will have the table array. So, in case of table array, generally, if your name manager was not created, how you're going to do is that you would have taken this complete table array, freeze that panes, and then you have set code. Oh, there are multiple Mickeys. No issues. So you would have freeze the pane like that, or maybe let's have a VLOOKUP on this. Okay. So you would have freeze the pane and you would have worked for this. Like you would have got this value over here as a pasting identification, right? But that because you have a name manager available, so what you can do instead of using that pivot, like instead of using this value or maybe this, like generally in this value, maybe by using this lookup table or using the using basically your this table array, what you can give, you can just give the name manager table and you can say column 4, then you can say false, and it will give you the data set accordingly. Now, what's the help of this? Basically, the help of this would be that whenever, if any of the new data is entered over here, so you don't have to manually go and change your range of that particular Excel file. So that way, name manager will help you doing that. That is also a pretty good reason to use it. Okay, so that's why we use a name manager in that case. So name manager is pretty helpful. Now, the next shortcut that we see over here is insert the current data type. So it is control plus greater than. So it's control plus greater than. And we'll get it or less than or something of that sort. Toggle to display of the formulas. So toggle to display of the formulas is control plus this column. You want to select a column, control plus space. So control plus space is select a column. Basically, if you want to delete a row, it's control plus minus. So if let's say I want to delete any row, it's control minus. So it will ask you, do you want to shift the cells, whatever places, you can shift it. Insert a row, control plus shift. So it's control plus shift. Let's say here, control shift. Oh, sorry. Control shift plus, and it will help you to insert it. You want to shift the cell down or up, so it shifted the cell accordingly. Like this way, you can have some shortcuts available in your data set. Okay. Now, whenever you deal with Excel formulas, you also deal with some of the bugs, some of the errors that happens. Every time whenever we are working with formulas, you will see some common Excel errors that will come up or that you will see across. So what are these common errors that we have? So these common errors are nothing, but these common errors are like hash. When the cell is too narrow to display the results of the formula, then you will get hash. Let's say the number is very huge, which you have entered. So when it will not able to display due to the size constraint, then it will show you hash. So to fix this, make the column width wider and real value will be displayed instead of hash sign. So one of the things to be noticed here is whenever you see hash signs are being displayed, Excel still uses the real value to create the formula of the reference cell. So for example, if you have applied a formula in the reference cell due to any reason, so in that case, you can calculate the formula of this reference cell and you can do it. Then there is a error which is called as hash name. Hash name is something which is used for your cell references in the formula. That is basically when your formula is not correctly implemented or your formula is not correct. Basically, in that cases, we use you get this error basically of reference formula set. For example, like if you have b plus b plus 10 instead of b3 plus 10, then you will have this hash name error. Then for the value, hash value error. So hash value error is basically when you are trying to resolve something, like whenever you are doing a mathematical operations and you are doing a mathematical operation with a text value. So mathematical operation, the rule of applying a mathematical operation is that you can only apply the mathematical operation using a numeric value. So if you are multiplying or dividing, doing all these stuff by two values, which is the numeric, or basically the numeric is multiplying, or numeric is adding, or whatever it is doing. So then in that case only you can use the value. Otherwise, apart from that, you can't use it. Okay. Then if you have any div errors is basically when you are trying to divide something by 0. So something by 0 is actually not possible. So that will lead to a div error. Then any of the circular references. So circular references basically contains a reference to the cell for that formula lives in. For example, like let's say put a plus 1 in a cell or a1, or else putting some a1 to b1. Like these type of references leads to a circular reference wherein the formula lives in it. So basically there is already a formula existing in that, and then you are again applying the formula with the same cell and the same reference. So that will lead to a circular reference basically. Then hash name. This will be a very frequent error. This error you will see whenever you apply any formula like in VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, or maybe index match. Then you will see these errors very, very frequently. Okay. Then we have referential errors, like most common errors messages that you see when you fiddle with the worksheet, like hash ref. When there is like you were writing a formula and sometimes the formula has not been correct, then it will be hash ref. Or you will get a hash ref exclamation error when one of the formula parameters pointing to any invalid ranges. So that range which doesn't agree, or that range which doesn't have the data. So that will lead to a hash ref error. Okay. Then there are some formulas that need to be created. Formulas that perform calculations, which returns the information, manipulate the contents to other cells, test conditions, and more. That is called as creating a formula. The formula starts with an equal to. So every time, whenever you are writing any formula in Excel, you always remember, in fact, when we were doing those sum, power, averages, all these formulas, when we were doing, then you can see that you can easily see that there is a sum that you are getting the syntaxes basically, and you will always have to use equals to sum, and then only your formula starts it. So that is called as the sum formula. So individually, you have to provide a cell reference to that. So cell reference in Excel is basically where you want to look up for the formula for, like for which cell you want to refer it, for which cell you want to make it a part. Now, reference cell. Reference of a cell. Now, references are also of two types in Excel. There is one reference, which is a relative reference, which automatically changes as you copy down across the rows or down the columns. So that is called as relative references. Absolute references are when you make your references fixed, means they do not change when you copy a formula. For example, you will have $sign attached to the row as well as the column. So that is called as a absolute reference. So we generally, whenever we are applying for any formulas like VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, index match or something, we always try to make the lookup table or the lookup array as an absolute reference rather than keeping it as relative reference. The reason behind is that if we keep it as a relative reference and as soon as I drag the formula down, then in that case, the formula is not going to overpower completely. It will be showing as an error or throwing me an error. Okay. Then there are some functions that are present in Excel like sum, average, SUMIF, count. You have COUNTIF, you have IF. So these are some of the functions that are basically available. And these functions basically are the functions which helps in the formatting of the cell, or maybe the formatting of the formatting of the cell, maybe in the functioning of the cell, for all of these stuffs. So for that purposes, basically these functions in the cells exist. Okay. Now let's move to some of the Excel formulas. Let me just delete the sheet. And let's move to some of the other formulas that we have in Excel. So the first formula that we have in Excel, that are some of the advanced Excel parts, are VLOOKUP. You know, what is a VLOOKUP? VLOOKUP is something whenever I am going to look for a formula by using a array functions for that purpose. That is called as a VLOOKUP in Excel. So generally, the definition of VLOOKUP to find a data in a table of row or a table range by rows. That is called as a VLOOKUP for us. Okay. That is called as a VLOOKUP. Now, how do we apply this VLOOKUP? It's very simple. Let's say this is my table where I have first name, last name, department, city, and date hired. Okay. Now let's suppose for the first name, which is Stuart, I want to get basically the name. Basically, I want to get the first name of the users. So like the way we have Stuart, so I want to see what is the next name that we can get. So from Jason, and accordingly, like for Stuart and Jason, they have the first name. I want to get their departments across. How I can see the departments. So basically, you can have a VLOOKUP. So lookup value in this case will be your Stuart, because based on this, you want to look up the data, whatever you want to get from. Then your table array will be this to this. And here, oh, my bad. So Stuart will be your lookup array, then you will have a comma. And then for the table array, you will select this, which will be, and you are going to use an absolute referencing. So here I freezed it so that my data doesn't move when I just move across the cell, as in when I just drag my formula to the rows. Then for the column index, basically, I am going to use the column index number. So column index number, so as I want to find out the department against it, so my department is column C, which is 3. So I'll put it as 3, and then here I will say it as false, and false means it's an exact match, and it will give me an exact match. So what happened? Okay, my range was not correct. So see, I told you there's hash any that comes up. So that means you need to mend your this range. So I can correct that up by using this. Right now, see, now I got this. So now if I'm going to drag this over here for Jensen, I just simply select that and I press Ctrl R, so I'll get operations. So that's the reason for freezing the cell, so that whenever I just drag the formula from here to some other point, then that doesn't like move the data or maybe don't trim the data in any which way. Like that is the scenario basically. Okay. Then we have HLOOKUP. So HLOOKUP is basically the horizontal lookup when you want to compare a values located in a row across the top of the table of a data and you wanted to look down a specific number of rows, then you basically use a HLOOKUP. So HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP are majorly compared. So VLOOKUP is when you compare the values are located in column to the left of the data, and HLOOKUP is when you stands for a horizontal lookup. So VLOOKUP means a vertical lookup and HLOOKUP generally means a horizontal lookup. When I want to deal with the data in a horizontal way, then it's a horizontal lookup, else it's a vertical lookup. So let's say for this, I want to apply a HLOOKUP that for my first name, I'm getting my cities. So this is the city I'm getting for. So how can I apply that? HLOOKUP. Now my lookup value will be this. My table array will be this. I'll freeze it. And then while now this time it's not column index, but it's row index because I'm moving horizontally. So my row is this time 4th because I want to get the city and I want to get an exact match. So this is how I got the data. So this is called as the HLOOKUP in this case. Okay. Now, now let's see the if formula. But before going to the if formula, let's see one more scenario. So if you remember previously, I told you about the name manager. Now, how can I generate that name manager? In this case, let's say I want to look for the department of these people, Jason and Lucky. Let's say I want to see for the department. How can I do it? By using a name manager. See, first of all, I have to create a name manager. So I told you that either you can to simply go to the formulas and you can create a name manager over here. So I'll go to a new name manager. Here, I'll just select this. And I'll click on OK. So this name manager lookup is created. Now I will apply a HLOOKUP. I will take the lookup value on base of name. Now, instead of using this time selecting the table, I will call for the name manager. What was my name manager? This HLOOKUP name manager. Now my row would be 3rd because I'm going to see for the department, and my match will be in 2nd. So see, by using a name manager, it's become easy. So you can give the name manager range to a dynamic range as well, wherein you can use the last column of your data set, so that whenever a new entry comes up, you don't have to literally update your VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. You can just simply use a name manager and it will automatically update. Like if there is any new data entry in your data set, it will not it will help you to make it more dynamic. Okay. Now, let's go to the if formula. So if formula is basically based on the criteria of the formula. If formula basically is a criteria based formula. So for example, let's say in case of if formula, let's say if you want to have a formula wherein you want to apply like, okay, if my value is greater than 4, then it should be greater than 4 value, or if my value is less than 4, then it should be less than 4 value, like that way. If you want to have these formulas available, or if you want to work with these type of formulas, then we use a if formula in that case. Now, how it is done? Let's suppose if I'll say if O2 is greater than 5, then it should be yes. Else, if it should be yes, 4 is greater, else it should be no. So O2 means my this value. So that means I said that my this value is greater than 5, then it should be yes, it is greater than 5, else it should be no. That's how it's supposed to show me. Similarly for this one also. If O3 is greater than 5, then yes, greater than 4, and else it is no. So this is how we are going to see for the different types of formulas and see for the different types of increase in the data set basically. So this is how we can work for it. Okay. So if is basically based on the conditions that you provide and that you work for. Okay. Now, coming on to the next, which is an index match formula that we all have. An index match formula is a very, very important formula that we have in a database or in a data cases. So index match formula basically helps you with an index matching of the data set. So whenever you match or do an indexing of the data set, then you get this index match formula available. Now, how you basically do that? Let's say I have this data set wherein basically you have to apply this index match formula over here. Now index match index match formula is basically basically how we use it. Index matching is based on the array of the data set. Okay, so whatever arrays you have or whatever data you have, basically basically that helps you with the index matching, because it is a best combination wherein you can have the syntax of both the array columns. So you don't have to use a complete table array in case of index matching, basically, because in case of index and match, you are separately using two columns for the referencing and for the for your lookup values. So that's why we work on a column and not on the complete table. Okay, so how they work? For example, for the first name, I want to pick up the city. Also, for this, yeah, I want to pick up this. For the first name, I want to pick up the city. So how can I basically do that? Okay, let's see. How can we do that? I'll first take index. Now, index gives me this. So in the index, first of all, I'll take the column for the city, the values of the city in this column. I'll do an absolute referencing. Now I'll take match. My VLOOKUP value is this. And for me, the lookup value will be this time name. I'll do an absolute reference and the match type is exact. And I'll enter and voila, I'll have the city name against it. So basically, if you see in this, we are not using a complete table. We are basically matching it on the basis of the row. So as I want to pick up on a lookup for the city, I want to get the value of the city based on the name. So what I did on the first indexing, I took all the values or all the column of the city. And in the next one, I took all the values of the name. Now VLOOKUP and index matching is kind of same. Okay, but the thing is there are a huge difference Like instead of using a VLOOKUP, to we always prefer to use an index match. There are reasons behind it. What are the reasons? The first reason is that it has a dynamic column reference. Now, what do you understand by a dynamic column reference? Basically, what happens in your VLOOKUP, it requires a static column reference. For example, you have to provide a column reference that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like that way. So that needs a column reference basically. That's why it is a dynamic. That's why it is not a dynamic column reference. You have to manually enter that. Whereas in case of your index match, that is not a dynamic column reference that you get for. You basically get the you don't get a dynamic column. You get a dynamic column reference over here in the index match case, right? So in case of index match, as you have the requires a dynamic column reference. So you have that dynamic column reference. You are not manually entering it because here we are using an array. So that's why it is providing me a dynamic column reference in any which ways. Okay. So as you are using a static reference or adding a new column to your table, it breaks the VLOOKUP formula. Whereas an index match, it will allow you to click those columns which you want to pull the value from. So basically, you will only use those columns from where you require your value. That's it. So that's the main difference. For example, let's say if for the product ID, I want to find the price. So obviously, I'll use the product ID column and the price. I'm not bothered with the other data or other columns in the data set, right? So that's the major reason. Then in VLOOKUP, you have to be very safe with insertion or deletion of the column. Because as you have a static reference, so as soon as you delete a column or you may delete a row, then in that way, your formula will break. Okay, each time you add or delete or add a new column, your formula breaks. So you can manually set the formula to refer a correct column. So you have to every time manually set up that. But in case of our index match, you don't have a dynamic column reference. So that's why that problem gets saved because you are only dealing with those columns which you require for putting up the data through. So that's why there is no distortion in the array or there's no distortion in the data set. So that's the reason that it is mostly used. Then lookup value size limit. So there is a size limit for a lookup value. So you can't exceed a size limit of 255 for a lookup value. If you exceed that size, it will give you a hash value error. So if the value of the lookup is basically 255 characters, then it will give you a hash value error. But in case of index match, you can have a value greater than 255 as well. So that is also one of the things that you can look up value and you can look up the size limit of that data. Then higher processing speed. So higher processing speed is why? Because in VLOOKUP, index match will have a negligible table array because we are only dealing with one single column. So obviously, this has a negligible table array. It will have a very small or a negligible table array. But if your worksheet contains a lot of rows and formula, index match will work faster and VLOOKUP will work slow because VLOOKUP actually compares with the complete table. So that's why it becomes slow. Whereas index match doesn't become slow because it doesn't compare with the complete data set or because it is dealing only with the rows. Because in that case, VLOOKUP has to deal with the complete table and index match in this case will have to deal only with the columns rather than the entire table array that it could consider for. Then the next thing is it has a lookup value position. So VLOOKUP will only work if there is a lookup value position in the first column. So let's say if I would like to see for the first name or like for with respect to name, I want to find out the departments or city, I would get the value using a VLOOKUP. But if let's suppose based on the department, I would want to see what persons works in which department, then VLOOKUP will not work. So basically, VLOOKUP doesn't work on the negative scale of the data. It will always work on the positive scale of the data. That's also a very huge difference and a very huge issue. So whereas VLOOKUP cannot move from the left. However, in case of index a match, it solves the problem as it performs the lookup both horizontally and vertically as well. So it does not require the lookup value to be in the first column itself. Whenever it wants and wherever it wants, so it will work with that column and it will be in each and every section of the data. So that's how it basically works and that's how it basically looks. And these are basically the 5 differences for which we say that yes, VLOOKUP is much more better option than using a lookup than using your other lookups as well. So that is also one of the reasons of using an index match instead of a VLOOKUP. Okay. So these are some of the things that we can use. So obviously, we should always use basically we should always use a index match if we want to find out anything rather than using a VLOOKUP in any which ways. Okay. Now, coming on to the SUMIF formulas. Now, the SUMIF formulas are basically a sum with an if condition. So, sum of the formula, summing a column with some if conditions, that is called as SUMIF. Okay, SUMIF in Excel simply. So basically, when you have any criteria to apply for that, if I am doing a sum of something, I want to have a criteria also for that fixed. So based on that criteria, my sum should come. So then in that case, you have a SUMIF formula. So you apply it on one range and the sum corresponds to the value in the different range. Okay. Now, let's see how we do it. Basically, this is the data. Now for the graphs, I want to have the sum of the how many total number of total number of animals are there for the graph or the total numbers are there for the particular graph. How can I do that? Basically, I'm going to do a SUMIF over here. Now, herein I'm going to basically write for a SUMIF formula wherein based on the criteria that I want to put a criteria for the graphs, I would be looking for my sum. Now, how and what all the criteria is, let's say I took SUMIF. So first is range. So my range would be this one. The type, I'm going to give an absolute value. Then my criteria, that is graphs. And then finally the sum range. The sum range is this one. From here, I want to get the value and I'll see. So see, it gives me the data. Okay. So basically you are getting the sum on the basis of the graph. So if you check that for the graph, what is the sum? So that comes to 1248, which is correct. Similarly for water, if you want to check, that's come as 1249. Then your next formula is, now there is one more formula, which is sum ifs. Sum ifs is when you have more than one criteria to look for. Then we go ahead with sum ifs function. Like we have multiple criteria. Then we go ahead with the with this function of wherein we will get the total of like the way. So for example, if we talk about sum ifs, so it's the sum range first. So the sum range would be this one. Reach that. Criteria range 1. So let's say my criteria range 1 would be on the basis of name. And my criteria would be for, let's say, chameleon. And then my next criteria range would be, sorry, my bad. So my criteria range first was for this, and it should be actually fire. Then the second criteria range would be on this, which will be name. Just a second, I'm writing something down. Let's create it one more time. Let's say sum ifs. So for this, I'm looking at sum. Then my criteria range one is this one. And I would say the criteria is fire. Then my second criteria range is on the basis of name. And that is for so you should be very careful with the names, whatever names you have provided accordingly, you have to give that. So what I have given is that I want to find the sum based on that the type should be fire and my name should be Charmander. So then in that case, I get the value like this way. So sum if is like when you have multiple criteria to go for, then it will always be sum ifs. Okay. In that case, we will use a sum ifs for that purpose. Similarly, we have COUNTIF. So COUNTIF is when you are counting some of the data based on your let's say COUNTIF, you are counting some of the things based on any criteria. So then in that case, you will have COUNTIF. Like based on a criteria, you are doing a counting of the numbers. Let's say in this case, where I am doing a count based on grass, water, electricity, what is the count for it? So how basically I can do that? Again, just simply count on the basis of the criteria and here whatever the count value I want to give for. So if you go to counters, I want to first give the range. So my range would be here. The type, I'll make it an absolute distance and then my criteria, that's this. So I'll get this. Now, in this also we have COUNTIFs, where you have multiple criteria range. So let's say my first criteria range is this one only. Then my criteria would be this. Or maybe I just manually type like grass. And then I have a criteria range 2, which is this. And here I want to say see for or maybe not grass. Let's take it for something else. Maybe normal. And let's take it as Ratata and close it. So you have 0. Now maybe I made a spelling mistake in any of that. That's why it's giving me 0. Why? Because for this range of normal and for Ratata, I don't have any counts available. That's why it gave me a 0 for that in that case. Okay. Or maybe for that reason, I got 0 because for Ratata, I don't have any entries available. Now, the next thing is count A. Now, count A formula helps you to count basically that how many basically in the count A, what you get to know is you basically get to know that how many cells in the range is not empty. Cell in the range is not at all empty. Okay, that is called as a count function, count A function. How many cells are not empty? So let's say in this case, if I am looking for a set of range wherein I would see for this cell, let's say for this one, I want to see my bad count A, and I want to see for this one. So it will show me 12. Now if you see this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 cells are basically empty. There were 20. So that's why these are there. So if you see for the count of entries in the data set, you will find it 12 only. Okay, the count is 12. So for which the data is like available and the data is there. Okay, so for that reason, we use count A in that cases. Okay, so count A is basically, it will tell you how many columns are available. Then you have a formula of count blank. How many columns are basically blank in your data set? Like in this way, if you want to count how many columns are blank, like let's say in this one, let's say count blank. So for this range, if I need to find out a count blank, it will be easy because there are no blanks. So obviously, you will not get the blanks in any which ways. Okay. But in other cases where you can see blanks, like in this one, this column, so I'll have 8 blanks in a normal way. Now, there is a function of ifs as well, multiple ifs, like a nested if formula, wherein you can have multiple conditions. Like in this case, where I have name, type, and speed. And I want to divide them on the basis of the speed. I want to divide them if the speed is slow, if the speed is normal, or if the speed is faster. So I said, if my value will be greater than 90, then it is faster. If my value is greater than 50, then it will be a normal speed. And if it is less than equal to 50, that means it is slow. Okay. So there, accordingly, I put that and I got a value for that. Wherein I would see either it is a slow, a normal, or faster speed. So multiple if conditions, you can have a nested if. Right now, in the new versions of Excel, you will not use the nested if. Instead, you have ifs there. So ifs and nested if, like again and again, writing the if statement, because if contains of two conditions, wherein if your criteria, like whatever the column reference you want to choose for, and then you have to put on the criteria that okay, for greater than or less than, you need to use it or not use it for that purpose. So then in that case, instead of using for the false section, you can again write an if and use the formula for it. But in the new versions of Microsoft Excel, you will basically observe or basically see that they have multiple, instead of that, if like I'm writing over here, you will have ifs. So that has been replaced. That has been a new versions update that you will have ifs. So ifs is a normal venture of your multiple, like the multiple ifs, or I can say that it's a form of a nested ifs where you can have multiple criteria, and based on that you can categorize. Like for example, in a class, if I have marks of student, so whosoever has a marks in the range of 100, marks between 100 to let's say 90, then they will be given as excellent. Students who have marks between 90, say 85 to let's suppose 70, they will have they will mark as like good. Okay. Then from let's say 60 to 55, they will mark as an above average, and below 50, they will be marked as an poor, or like an average student. We can mark that up. Okay. And which are below than that also, or if somebody scores a 0, then that's a fail condition. So, like in a case or in a scenario where you have multiple situations or multiple criteria to work through, or multiple criteria to see through, then in that case we use ifs a lot. Multiple ifs for explaining that condition, for providing that condition, for doing that stuff. Okay. So these are some of the information of the formulas that are there in Excel. So basically, Excel has a huge lot of formulas that are available, and there is no data that is okay. You can complete it in a way, because Excel itself is a very huge sort of a thing and a huge way. So basically, that's why there are a lot of formulas that are there, and we can't really cover them up like in a way. But yes, obviously, when you talk about formulas, when you talk about this work, when you talk about everything, you should always remember that formulas never comes in 1 day or 2 days. You have to constantly revise those, you have to constantly practice those. Then only these formulas becomes much and more clear, and you will get to know, okay, where I want to use this formula, where I want to use this formula, and you will get all these pictures clear in your mind. So that's how the formula section works, and that's how the formula works. Okay. Now comes in Excel is one more thing, which is your pivot table. Now, what is a pivot table? Pivot table is basically a table of stats that summarizes the data for you. You all have heard that there is something called as a pivot table in Excel. But what is this pivot table? This pivot table is nothing, but it's a table of a stats, that means statistics, which summarizes your data to get the sum, to get average, sometimes to get the count as well, and many other statistical measures. So what are those statistical measures will be? Sum, average, minimum, maximum, maybe count, or running total, running average, median, mode, whatever it is, you will get it. For example, let's say if you assume that we have got a data of a real estate, okay, a real estate project with different fields. Like you have the fields for the flat, you have the field of block names, area of individual apartment, and their costs for various services, etc. Then how you're going to deal with those type of data sets? So basically, to deal with these type of data sets, what you basically need is that you get a pivot table, because whenever a data becomes very huge, okay, in that point of time, it's very difficult to read through that data. It's very difficult that you go to each of the lines, apply a formula, and you get that data set, and you get those data or aircraft, you get those data combined together. So for that reason, we always use this type of pivots for that purpose itself, to create a pivot. Because first thing is that pivot is something which will actually give you a smaller view, and it will give you accurate results. Moreover, pivots are never duplicate records. Pivots never happens to contain any duplicate set of records or any duplicate set of data. Now, how pivots are considered? Let's see an example. Let's say this is my data set. I'll just minimize this for you guys. And let's say if this is my data set, where I have some number, type, block name, area, maintenance deposit, and final product value. So this was I was talking about the real estate data. Okay, now I have to create a pivot out of this, because it's really a huge data set. Now, if I would say that how much area is for Mickey, how much area is for strawberry, how much area is for Chiku, you want to find out. So that's become very difficult. And also the sum of maintenance deposit, the final product value. If you want to find out all these stuff, so how can you do that, right? So for that reason, what you can do is you basically just select this data. Either by the click, you can go to insert and there's an option of pivot table. So you can get a pivot table and a pivot chart. So if you want to enter a table, so that will be a tabular expression. So you can create a pivot table. Now, once you click over here, it will ask you that range. The range is already selected. Now, if you want to, by default, it selects for a new worksheet. But if you want to enter it in the same worksheet, you can just simply go to the existing worksheet and you can simply give it over here and click OK. So here your pivot table will be there. Now, it gives you report filter, column labels, row labels, and values. So row labels means whatever you want to see per row. Let's say for the block name, I want to see the area, sum of area. I want to see the final product value and the maintenance deposit. So I want to see the maintenance deposit sum, but for the final product value, I want to basically see its average. So this is how I get a table form of a view, which is a tabular form. Now, if you see for Chiku, I get a sum of area as for 14,126. So it was very tough for here to decide, like it's 14,126, how it is getting. So I need to see for Chiku. If I see for it, I have to go manually. Like here, this one. So first is this, then this, then probably this, and then it is this, and then it's this. So I get a sum of this one. So this is how it's basically making it. Now, pivot tables will never have any duplicate values. If you ever take it and ever show it to some person, it will never have any duplicate value, never. That's a best thing to have in it, that it will never ever get you through any duplicate values or any of that stuff. Okay. So that's how it works, and that's how it actually works, and that's how it gives you a more detailed view of the data. Okay. So that is a pivot table for us, guys. That's a pivot table. Now, if let's suppose with this data only, I want to enter a pivot chart. With this, I want to enter a pivot chart in the existing workbook itself. And let's say I want to enter it here. So now I want to have a chart to build for. Let's say there should be a filter of type. There should be block name. There should be area. And just final product. So kind of this way I want to see it. Now, if I open this, I can have a select multiple. And I just want to see for these three maybe. So see, my chart has been restricted to these. So in a similar way, you can create chart, and that chart will automatically create a table for you as well. So that's also a very good visual to watch for. So charts also create visuals. Now, if you want to design this, like for example, in this case, I have the option to design it. So you go to designing. You do not show subtotals if you do not want to. You off the rows and columns grand total. You on the rows columns grand total. You can change the report layout as well, like in a compact form or maybe in a tabular form probably. Then maybe the design of it, you can change it to any design as per your likings, like this. So these are something. Then you have banded rows like this way, or banded columns if you want to. You want to show the row headers, want to show the column headers as colored, up to you how you want to show that. Then you have various options, like you can name it a pivot table, you can have a block name, or maybe something, or you can expand the entire field, you can collapse the entire field, you can have group, ungroup, you can sort the data, insert slicers according to it. For, let's say, example, for the block name, I can enter the slicers. So if I enter these slicers and I change for it, see, this works. So that's a very interactive sort of a thing that and in fact, I can like have a pivot connection also, that this pivot table is related to which analysis or which table. So that is also one of a very important thing. So you have other options as well. You can refresh it. So whenever your data changes, you can refresh it. In fact, you can change the data source also. If you want to change the data source, you can simply go to change data source and you can change your data source very easily. So that is also one. Okay, that option also you have available. Then you have option to, let's say, clear for, give me a second. Okay, you have clear, you can select, you can move your pivot table, you can summarize by values, you can show values. So whatever you want to do, you can do it in any which way. Similarly, for the charts also, you have this designing option. You can have charts like this way, you can have charts like this. I mean, it's up to you what colors you want to choose for. Like, let's say I want to choose for this. It's look pretty nice. And here I want to choose for this value. Then maybe change chart type. If you want to change it from a chart to a line chart, I could probably do that. You can switch your rows and columns like this way. You can switch the data if you want. So there's a lot of things you can do from this analysis, from this part. Like you have a layout wherein you can have some text box, you can have chart tile, you can have access legends, anything. In fact, if you want to format anything, if you want to analyze the data, so you'll have a field button, you can insert a slicer for this. For this also, I can insert a slicer. Let's say for the type only, I insert a slicer. Let's say right now I want to see for this. So see, it's changed. Now it shows for each of them. So this is how it works. In fact, if you go to the slicers, you have this option to bring it as well. Like you will have a pivot table connection, that with what pivots you want to make the slices connect to. Like right now it is with pivot table analysis. If I want it with this also, if I want it with this also, I can click on that. So accordingly now, right now, if I change the C, the upper value also changed. So this is something wherein I make a connection to the data set that, okay, according to my data set, it will show me the values. You know, this value is also changing and the chart is also changing. So these are a kind of interactive charts or interactive pivot table that we create. So pivot is a very good option. It's one of an advanced level option wherein you can create all these types of interactive things, interactive sort of dashboards, interactive sort of a data sets, which will not only help you with all this capabilities, but it will also help you with looking for the data, with looking for the data sets, with looking for all the values, for everything else. So you can make your charts dynamic. Okay. So that's also a very major part of it, that you can make your charts dynamic, you can make it all through the data, you can change accordingly, you can make slices according to your work, and moreover, you have the options of formatting. Any styles, any formats, like for example, right now, if I want to format it to any which ways, I can format it in a way. I want to bring it forward, bring it backward, I want to send it to back, I want to have a selection pane. I can do anything with it. I want to align it in a way like snap to grid or anything. I can do it. Snap to shape. So I can do it in any which ways. So basically, my concern is that you can format your data in any which ways possible. And accordingly, your data and charts are going to change. And moreover, this is a one-time job that you do. So once you created it one time, then you don't have to create it again. You don't need further creation of this. what you do is you just have created one time and then you can just refresh your data. So once you click on this pivot table, you have this option. These are for designs. Once you click on this pivot table and once you click on this, you have a data and you have a refresh option. So let's say if your table changes and maybe you put up a new data over here. Let's suppose, for example, I put up a new data. Maybe for Donald's. And I give it as 2419.86. And give this as 432156. Let's say I give it as 1567232. Probably this. So this is something which is a new entry which I have here. I want to show them is this data. So I just click on this. I go to the data and I say refresh all. See, as soon as I did it, the number for Donald changed. Completely changed. Earlier it was something else and now it is something else. Numbers have changed as I've added a new data. And let's say if I have not made it as Donald, I have made it as Ferry. And now if I'm going to refresh, I'm sorry. So see, the data have changed. So this is how basically your data changes. So you just need to save that. And once you go over here, say refresh all, and accordingly you get your data accordingly. Or maybe now I just go for the Donald again. And see, numbers changes. So this is something which is like a refresh sort of a thing you are doing. In your data, in your data sets, in your data, you are refreshing it. So this is how data changes. This is how data works. So that's how you look for that data set. That's how you work with the data set. So these are something which helps you with the designing part of it, which helps you to create some interactive dashboards in Excel and helps you to do some pivot analysis. Like this is a simple pivot analysis, but in many cases, you can create charts, you can create graphs, you can create a lot of things over there. So basically, Excel is one of a very powerful tool. One thing. Second, it's a bread and butter of any organization that you work for. For each and every organization you work for, you always have a bread and butter, which is called as Excel. Because whatever time we go through, we will always have Excel in a place. Because without spreadsheet, you can't see anything for any which ways. Okay, so that's a major thing. And that's how it works. Okay, so always remember that whenever you are working with these data sets or whenever you are looking further with these data sets, so there are a lot more. And spreadsheets are something which is like some very easiest tool to share for the data, to work with the data, to help with the data, to everything. So that's why whenever we work with a simple way, and the simple basic learning of this would always be Excel. If you know about Excel, you can compare it with any other data, any other data sources, any other documents, anything in this world, and you can simply make it. And you can make it more easier way. You can make it, you can see it through in a very easier way. The lenses to see through it is very easier. So that's why in case of business analytics, the Excel is more preferred till date. Although we have a lot of technologies in place, but still we prefer the